The rain had been falling for 3 days straight when it finally stopped. That's when the real darkness began. Lightning cracked across the midnight sky above the Nysc orientation camp, splitting the heavens with a violence that made the earth shudder. In that split second of blinding illumination, Amina saw something that would haunt her for the rest of her life. Deep in the surrounding forest, beyond the barbed wire fence that marked the boundary between civilization and whatever lurked in those ancient trees, stood a thatched hut. But it wasn't just any structure. The lightning revealed its twisted silhouette. Palm fronds arranged in patterns that seemed to writhe and pulse even in stillness, wooden poles that bent at impossible angles, and at its center, a doorway that gaped like a screaming mouth. Chidi stood motionless beside her, his breath coming in short, terrified gasps. In his trembling hand, he gripped a small carved idol, no bigger than his palm, but heavy, so impossibly heavy. The weight of it seemed to drag his entire arm downward, as if the earth itself wanted to reclaim what had been stolen. They should never have come here. They both knew it now. But knowing and doing are two different things, and the knowing had come far, far too late. It had started 3 nights ago, on the very first evening of their arrival at High Ridge Camp. The orientation had been grueling, the kind of systematic breaking down of civilian softness that the Nysc was famous for. 217 young Nigerians, fresh from universities across the country, their heads still full of lecture notes and thesis defenses, suddenly thrust into a world of pre-dawn drills, shouted commands, and communal suffering. Amina had arrived on the bus from Lagos with her small traveling bag and her even smaller reserve of courage. She was a petite woman, barely 5'3", with gentle eyes that revealed an inner strength most people missed on first meeting. Her sociology degree from the University of Lagos meant nothing here. Everyone was equal under the harsh fluorescent lights of the orientation hall. Equally exhausted, equally confused, equally afraid of what the next 3 weeks would bring. That first night, after the camp commandant's stern welcome speech and the assignment to their various platoons, the rumors began. Amina first heard it in the women's dormitory, a long concrete structure with 20 metal bunk beds arranged in neat rows. The sheets were thin and scratchy, the mosquito nets full of holes, and the air thick with the smell of camphor and nervous sweat. She was trying to arrange her belongings in the small metal locker beside her bed when she overheard 2 women talking in hushed, urgent tones. "My cousin served here 5 years ago," one was saying. Her name tag read Blessing, and she had the kind of face that looked like it smiled often, though it wasn't smiling now. She said people went missing. 3 of them in her batch. They never found the bodies. The other woman, whose name Amina couldn't see, made a dismissive sound. "That's just stories. You know how these things get exaggerated." No, I'm serious." Blessing's voice dropped even lower, and Amina found herself leaning closer, pretending to organize her toiletries. She said there's something in the forest. An old shrine that was there long before they built this camp. The elders from the village tried to warn them not to build here, but you know government. They don't listen to that kind of thing. They just bulldozed through, cut down sacred trees, built right over burial grounds. And the other woman's skepticism was wavering now, infected by Blessing's genuine fear. And the spirits were angry. That's what my cousin said. The first batch that came here back in 1997, they lost 7 people. 7. In one night. The official report said it was a gas leak from the kitchen, but my cousin talked to someone who was there. She said they found the bodies scattered in the forest, each one with this look on their face, like they'd seen something so terrible their hearts just stopped. Amina felt a chill run down her spine despite the humid heat of the dormitory. She told herself it was nonsense, the kind of campfire stories that get told at every Nysc camp to scare the new batch. But something about the way Blessing told it, the genuine tremor in her voice, made it hard to dismiss entirely. She finished arranging her things and climbed into her bunk, pulling the mosquito net closed around her. Through the holes in the net, she could see the ceiling fan rotating slowly, barely moving the thick air. In the distance, she heard the sound of male corp members laughing and talking in their own dormitory across the parade ground. Normal sounds. Safe sounds. But underneath those sounds, if she listened carefully, she could hear something else. A faint rustling from the forest beyond the camp. the whisper of leaves moving when there was no wind. And once, just once, what might have been a low moan. So deep and distant she couldn't be sure she'd really heard it at all. That night, Amina dreamed of masks. She met Chidi the next morning during the dawn parade. The instructors had roused them at 4:30 a.m. with whistles and shouted commands, forcing them out of their bunks and onto the parade ground while the sky was still dark. Chidi was in her platoon, Platoon C, distinguished by their yellow armbands and a particularly sadistic platoon commander named Sergeant Okonkwo. Chidi was tall and lanky, with a kind of easy smile that suggested nothing in life had ever really bothered him much. He had studied computer science at the University of Ibadan and had that confident, almost arrogant air that came from being naturally good at everything. When Sergeant Okonkwo barked at them to pair up for drills, Chidi appeared beside her. "You look like you didn't sleep," he observed, not unkindly. Amina was too tired to be offended. "Bad dreams. Yeah, this place has that effect." He stretched his arms above his head, seemingly unbothered by the pre-dawn cold. "I'm Chidi. Amina." They went through the morning drills together. Endless jumping jacks, torturous sit-ups, runs around the parade ground that left them gasping and drenched in sweat despite the early hour. By the time the sun finally rose, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold, they had developed the kind of camaraderie that only shared suffering can create. At breakfast, a watery akara and stale bread served in the camp's dining hall. Chidi regaled their table with stories from his university days. He was a natural storyteller, using his hands expressively, doing voices for different characters. Despite her exhaustion, Amina found herself laughing. That's when Jide and Ngozi joined them. Jide was a stocky guy from Kano with a perpetual squint and a dry sense of humor that caught you off guard. Ngozi was tiny and fierce, barely 5 feet tall but with an energy that seemed to take up twice that space. She had a habit of punctuating her sentences with sharp hand gestures, as if physically pushing her points into the conversation. "You're in Platoon C2?" Ngozi asked, dropping her tray on the table with a clatter. "Did you see Sergeant Okonkwo's face when that guy, what's his name, Emmanuel, when he fainted during drills?" "I thought Okonkwo was going to have a stroke," Jide added, grinning. His vein was popping out of his forehead. They spent the rest of breakfast trading stories about the morning's disasters. Who had worn their uniform wrong, who had marched out of step, who had been caught sleeping during the commandant's endless speech about national service and patriotic duty. It felt good. Normal. Like maybe this wouldn't be so bad after all. That afternoon, during the break between afternoon drills and evening lectures, Amina saw Chidi talking to a small group of male corpers near the fence that marked the edge of the camp. Their body language was strange. Leaning in close, speaking in low voices, occasionally glancing toward the forest beyond. Curiosity got the better of her. She walked over, trying to look casual. "I'm telling you, I saw it," one of the guys was saying. He was short and muscular, with tribal marks on his cheeks. "Last night when I went to piss, there was a light in the forest, moving between the trees. Probably just a flashlight," another guy said, but his voice lacked conviction. "No flashlight moves like that. It was floating, man. Like 3 feet off the ground, just drifting through the trees." Chidi noticed Amina approaching and waved her over. "You heard the stories about this place?" She nodded. "Some. About a shrine in the forest." "It's not just stories," the guy with the tribal mark said. His name tag identified him as Emeka. "My friend's brother served here 2 years ago. He said the shrine is real. It's about a 20-minute walk into the forest, in a clearing. The locals still use it for rituals." "What kind of rituals?" Amina asked, though part of her didn't want to know. Emeka shrugged. "The kind where you don't want to know what they're sacrificing." One of the other guys laughed nervously. "Come on, man. This is 2024, not 1424. People don't do that kind of thing anymore." "You think?" Emeka's expression was dead serious. "You're in the middle of rural Nigeria, brother. The old ways don't die just because we have smartphones now. There are still places where the old gods are worshipped, where blood is spilled to appease spirits that have been here since before the British, before the missionaries, before any of us can remember. The group fell silent. Somewhere in the distance, a bird called out, a harsh grating sound that made Amina's skin prickle. "So what's supposed to be at this shrine?" Chidi asked. His tone was light, almost mocking, but Amina could see genuine interest in his eyes. "They say there's a mask," Emeka said. "A very old mask, carved from the wood of a sacred tree that was struck by lightning. The mask is supposed to house the spirit of an ancient warrior who died defending his village. The locals leave offerings for it. Kola nuts, palm wine, sometimes animals. And in return, the spirit protects the village from harm." Protects them from what? Jide had appeared behind them, drawn by the conversation. "From outsiders. From people who don't belong." Emeka's eyes swept across them. "From people like us." "But we're not bothering anyone," Amina protested. "We're just here for service." The spirit doesn't see it that way. To him, we're invaders. The government cut down his sacred grove to build this camp. They paved over burial grounds to make the parade ground. They put up buildings where there used to be altars. Emeka leaned in closer, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "My friend's brother said that first batch in '97? They weren't killed by a gas leak. The spirit took them, dragged them into the forest one by one and—" Okay, that's enough," Chidi interrupted, though he was grinning. "You're going to give people nightmares." But Amina noticed he didn't look away from Emeka. Neither did any of the others. "I'm just saying," Emeka continued. "There are rules. Don't go into the forest after dark. Don't disrespect the shrine if you happen to see it. And definitely don't take anything from it. The spirit is watching. Always watching." A sudden gust of wind blew across the parade ground, carrying with it the smell of earth and decay from the forest. Amina shivered despite the afternoon heat. That evening, during the mandatory lecture on community development, Amina found it hard to concentrate. She kept thinking about what Emeka had said, about the mask, about the spirit that supposedly protected it. She told herself it was ridiculous. She had a degree in sociology, for God's sake. She understood how these kinds of myths developed. The human need to explain the inexplicable, to give shape to formless fears. Every culture had them. Ghost stories, bogeymen, ways to keep children from wandering into dangerous places. But she also remembered something one of her professors had said during a lecture on indigenous belief systems. The most dangerous position is to dismiss everything as superstition. Some beliefs persist because they contain truth, even if that truth is uncomfortable for our modern minds to accept. That night, after lights out, Amina lay in her bunk staring at the darkness above her. The dormitory was full of the sounds of sleeping women. Soft snores, the rustle of bodies shifting on thin mattresses, the occasional murmur of someone talking in their sleep. She was just starting to drift off when she heard it. A sound from outside, low and rhythmic, like chanting. Amina sat up slowly, careful not to disturb the mosquito net. She strained her ears, trying to determine if she was imagining it. No, it was definitely there. Multiple voices, speaking in unison, words she couldn't understand. The sound seemed to be coming from the direction of the forest. She slipped out of bed and padded quietly to the window. The dormitory windows were simple rectangular openings with metal bars but no glass. Through them, she could see the parade ground bathed in moonlight, and beyond it, the dark mass of the forest. And there, just at the edge of the trees, she saw them. Figures. At least a dozen of them, standing in a circle, their bodies swaying in time with the chanting. They wore white cloth wrapped around their waists, their chests bare. Even from this distance, Amina could see that their faces were painted with white chalk in intricate patterns. As she watched, one of the figures raised something above its head, something that glinted in the moonlight. A machete, she realized with a jolt of horror. The chanting grew louder, more urgent. The figure with the machete brought it down in a swift, brutal arc. Amina jerked back from the window, her heart pounding. Had she just witnessed a sacrifice? Should she wake someone? Alert the guards? But when she forced herself to look again, the figures were gone. The edge of the forest was empty, the parade ground still and silent. The only sound was the normal chorus of night insects. Had she imagined it? Dreamed it while still half awake? Amina climbed back into bed, but sleep was impossible now. She lay awake until dawn, watching the darkness gradually give way to gray light, listening to the forest and wondering what it was hiding. The next day was Sunday, which meant a slightly more relaxed schedule. After morning parade and breakfast, they had a few hours of free time before the mandatory church service in the afternoon. Chidi found Amina sitting under one of the few trees on the parade ground, trying to find some shade from the already brutal sun. "You look terrible," he said cheerfully, dropping down beside her. "Thanks. You really know how to compliment a woman. Seriously though, you okay?" Amina hesitated, then told him about what she'd seen, or thought she'd seen the night before. As she spoke, she watched his expression shift from amused skepticism to genuine concern. "You're sure you weren't dreaming?" he asked when she finished. I don't know. It felt real. But then they just vanished." Chidi was quiet for a moment, staring out at the forest. "Emeka told me something else yesterday. After you left. He said that every batch, someone has to see it." "See what?" "The ritual. The locals perform it at the start of every new batch of corp members. It's supposed to be a warning, to remind us that we're guests here, that we need to respect the boundaries." "That's insane. We should report this to the commandant." "And say what? That you maybe saw some people doing a traditional ceremony on land that's technically not part of the camp? They'll think you're crazy. Or worse, they'll think you're causing trouble." Chidi shook his head. "The camp administration knows about the shrine. They have to. But they can't acknowledge it officially. Can you imagine the paperwork? The bad publicity?" Amina wanted to argue, but she knew he was right. In Nigeria, there were always two realities running parallel to each other. The official one and the real one. The official reality was that this was a modern Nysc camp, a symbol of national unity and progress. The real reality was that it was built on land that belonged to something much older than the nation itself. "So what do we do?" she asked. Chidi's eyes gleamed with something that made Amina nervous. "We could go look." "What? No, absolutely not. Why not?" "I'm curious. Aren't you?" Curiosity killed the cat, Chidi. But satisfaction brought it back. He was grinning now, that reckless grin that suggested he'd already made up his mind. "Come on. Just a quick look. We'll go during the day when it's safe. We'll bring Jide and Ngozi. There's safety in numbers. Or there's 4 people being stupid instead of 2. But even as she said it, Amina felt a pull. She did want to see it. Despite her fear, despite her better judgment, there was something magnetic about the idea of the shrine. It was like a word on the tip of your tongue, a melody you can't quite remember. The not knowing was worse than the knowing. "One look," she heard herself saying. "That's it. We see it, we come back, we never speak of it again." "Deal." Chidi held out his hand and they shook on it, sealing a pact that would change everything. They went that afternoon, during the lull between lunch and evening parade. Jide and Ngozi agreed to come after minimal convincing. Boredom was a powerful motivator, and the endless routine of camp life made any break in the monotony appealing, even if it meant breaking the rules. The 4 of them slipped away from the camp while most people were napping or studying in their dormitories. They'd changed out of their white and khaki uniforms into regular clothes, jeans and t-shirts that would blend into the forest better. Chidi brought a machete he'd borrowed from one of the camp's maintenance workers, claiming he needed it to clear some bush near his dormitory. Jide had a flashlight, even though it was broad daylight. "Just in case," he said. The fence at the back of the camp was easy to get through. There was a section where the chain link had been cut, probably by corp members from previous batches looking to sneak out for the same reason they were. The forest beyond looked different in daylight. Less ominous, more like an ordinary thick bush. "Which way?" Ngozi asked, slapping at a mosquito on her arm. Emeka had given them rough directions. Follow the forest path north for about 10 minutes. Then look for a massive Irako tree with a split trunk. The shrine was supposed to be just beyond it, in a natural clearing. The path was barely visible. just a slight depression in the undergrowth where feet had trod before. As they walked, the sounds of the camp faded behind them. The distant shouting of instructors, the clank of metal plates from the kitchen, the general hum of hundreds of people in close proximity. In their place came the sounds of the forest, the buzz of insects, the chatter of unseen birds, the rustle of leaves and the crack of branches, and underneath it all, a strange quiet, as if the forest were holding its breath. "This is so stupid," Amina muttered, but she kept walking. After about 15 minutes, they found the Agbako tree. It was massive, easily 5 feet in diameter, with roots that sprawled across the ground like grasping fingers. The trunk split about 6 feet up, creating a natural V-shape that gave it an oddly human appearance, like arms raised in supplication or warning. "Beyond this tree," Chidi said, his voice hushed now despite himself. They pushed through the undergrowth, and suddenly the forest opened up into a clearing. It was eerily perfect, a nearly perfect circle of bare earth surrounded by dense vegetation. And in the center stood the shrine. It was smaller than Amina had expected, barely bigger than a large garden shed. The structure was made of wooden poles driven into the ground, with walls of woven palm fronds and a thatched roof that sagged in the middle. Thick vines had grown over it, some as thick as a man's arm, creating an almost organic look, as if the shrine were being slowly consumed by the forest itself. But it was the altar that drew their attention. It sat on a low platform made of rough-hewn logs, about waist-high. The altar itself was constructed from intricately woven branches, creating a latticework pattern that was clearly deliberate, clearly meaningful. On top of it sat various offerings: a clay bowl filled with what looked like kola nuts, several small calabashes presumably containing palm wine, and the withered remains of what might have been a chicken, its feathers gray with age and weather. And behind all of this, hanging from a wooden peg driven into one of the shrine's support poles, was the mask. Even from 10 feet away, even in the dappled sunlight filtering through the forest canopy, the mask radiated wrongness. It was carved from dark wood, nearly black with age. The face was vaguely human but distorted, elongated, with a forehead that jutted out impossibly far. 2 horns, each about 6 inches long, curved up from that forehead like a ram's. The mouth was carved in a grimace that showed too many teeth, more teeth than any human should have, each one painstakingly carved and frighteningly detailed. But it was the eyes that made Amina's breath catch. The left eye was an amber bead, probably the sap from some tree, polished smooth and set deep in the socket. It caught the light and seemed to glow from within. The right eye socket was empty, just a deep black hole that seemed to go on forever, as if you could fall into it and never stop falling. "Holy shit," Jide whispered. They stood frozen at the edge of the clearing, none of them willing to step forward onto that bare earth. The air felt different here, heavier, charged with something Amina couldn't name. "We should go," she said. Her voice sounded small and far away. "Wait." Chidi took a step forward. Then another. "Chidi, no," Ngozi hissed, but he wasn't listening. He walked slowly toward the altar, his eyes fixed on the mask. As he moved, something changed in the clearing. The sound of birds stopped abruptly. Even the insects went silent. The only sound was Chidi's footsteps on the packed earth and the pounding of Amina's heart in her ears. "It's incredible," Chidi breathed. He was standing right in front of the altar now, reaching out toward the mask. The craftsmanship. This must be hundreds of years old. "Don't touch it." Amina's shout came out louder than she'd intended, echoing through the clearing. Chidi's hand froze inches from the mask. For a moment, he stood there, suspended between action and restraint. Then, slowly, he pulled his hand back. "Okay," he said. "Okay. You're right. We've seen it. Let's go." They left the clearing quickly, not quite running but close to it. None of them spoke until they were back through the fence and on campgrounds, as if talking about it might summon something they didn't want to face. That night, Amina dreamed of the mask again. But this time, in the dream, the amber eye was looking directly at her. And when she woke up, her pillow was wet with sweat, and she couldn't shake the feeling that something had followed them back from the forest. Something that was now watching, waiting, the breaking. The next morning dawned gray and oppressive. The usual morning parade was cancelled due to rain. the first rain since the 3 days of downpour that had preceded Amina's arrival. The corp members were confined to their dormitories, which quickly became stuffy and claustrophobic as 200 people tried to occupy spaces meant for sleeping, not living. Amina spent the morning reading a novel she brought from home, trying to lose herself in someone else's story rather than think about the mask. But the words kept blurring on the page, and she found herself reading the same paragraph over and over without absorbing any of it. Around midday, the rain stopped. The camp commandant announced that afternoon activities would resume as normal. Lectures in the hall, followed by evening parade and drills. It was during the afternoon lecture, a mind-numbingly boring presentation on agricultural development, that Amina noticed something wrong with Chidi. He was sitting 3 rows ahead of her, and from her vantage point she could see that he was trembling. Not obviously, just a slight shaking of his hands where they rested on his knees. His head kept tilting to the side, as if he were listening to something no one else could hear. After the lecture, she caught up with him outside the hall. "Hey, you okay?" Chidi jumped, startled, then tried to cover it with a laugh. Yeah, just tired. Didn't sleep well. Joined the club." Amina studied his face. There were dark circles under his eyes, and his skin had a grayish tint that suggested more than just tiredness. "You coming to dinner?" "In a bit. I need to grab something from my dorm first." He walked away quickly, his gait slightly unsteady. Amina watched him go, worry gnawing at her gut. At dinner, Chidi didn't show up. Neither did Jide. But Ngozi was there, picking at her food without much enthusiasm. "Have you seen the guys?" Amina asked, sliding into the seat across from her. Ngozi shook her head. Jide said he wasn't feeling well. Some kind of stomach thing. And Chidi. She paused, frowning. "Actually, I saw Chidi earlier. He was acting weird." "Weird how?" "Just weird. He was standing by the fence, staring at the forest. I called his name 3 times before he even noticed me. And when he did, he looked at me like he didn't know who I was. Then he just walked away without saying anything." Amina's worry deepened into genuine fear. "Where is he now?" "I don't know. His bunkmate said he hasn't been back to the dorm since after the lecture." They finished eating in silence, both lost in their own uneasy thoughts. After dinner, as the sun began to set and the call came for evening parade, Amina made a decision. She was going to find Chidi. She checked all the obvious places first. His dormitory, the camp's small canteen, the football field where people sometimes gathered in the evenings. No sign of him. As the sky darkened from orange to purple to deep blue, Amina felt her panic rising. Where could he be? And why did she have this terrible certainty that she knew exactly where he was? She found herself walking toward the back fence, toward the section where they'd snuck through to reach the forest. Her feet moved almost of their own accord, drawn by some invisible thread. And there he was. Chidi stood just outside the fence, visible in the gathering darkness because of his white t-shirt. He was facing the forest, completely still. "Chidi!" Amina called out, jogging toward him. "Chidi, what are you doing? Evening parade is starting." He turned to face her, and the words died in her throat. His eyes were wrong. The whites had a yellowish tint, and his pupils were dilated so wide they looked black. When he spoke, his voice had a strange echoing quality, as if 2 people were talking in unison. "It's calling me," he said. "What is?" "Chidi, you're scaring me." "The mask. It wants to come home." Before Amina could respond, Chidi turned and walked into the forest. Not quickly, not running, just a steady, purposeful walk, as if he were sleepwalking. "Chidi, stop!" Amina ran after him, her heart in her throat. She should go back, get help, tell someone. But there was no time. Chidi was disappearing into the darkness between the trees. She plunged into the forest after him, immediately regretting that she hadn't thought to bring a flashlight. The canopy overhead blocked out most of the remaining light, and she could barely see 3 feet ahead. "Chidi!" She called again. "Please stop." But he didn't stop. She could hear him ahead of her, crashing through the undergrowth with no regard for the thorns and branches that tore at his clothes and skin. Amina followed, terror lending speed to her feet. The forest seemed different at night, not just darker, but actively malevolent. The trees pressed in close, their branches reaching out like grasping hands. Strange sounds echoed through the darkness. Whispers that might have been wind, footsteps that might have been her own echo. And underneath it all, that sound she'd heard before. The chanting, growing louder with every step. She burst into the clearing and stopped short. The shrine was lit. Not with electric lights or even traditional lanterns, but with a pale, sickly glow that seemed to emanate from the structure itself. The air was thick with smoke from burning herbs, and Amina's eyes immediately began to water. Chidi stood before the altar, his hands outstretched toward the mask. As Amina watched in horror, his fingers closed around it. No, she lunged forward, grabbing his arm. Chidi, don't. But it was too late. The moment Chidi lifted the mask from its peg, everything changed. The temperature dropped so suddenly that Amina could see her breath misting in the air. The pale glow flickered and went out, plunging the clearing into absolute darkness. And then the chanting started in earnest. Not distant this time, but all around them, as if they were surrounded by invisible mouths, all speaking in a language that predated words. A wind rose from nowhere, swirling around the clearing with hurricane force. It whipped Amina's hair across her face and nearly knocked her off her feet. She clung to Chidi's arm, screaming his name, but the wind stole her voice away. Lightning cracked overhead. Not the normal lightning of a storm, but a sickly green bolt that illuminated the clearing for a split second. In that moment of light, Amina saw them. The statues. They ringed the clearing, dozens of them, carved from wood and standing 7 feet tall. But they hadn't been there before. She was certain of it. They must have been hidden in the shadows, or perhaps they hadn't existed at all until Chidi took the mask. The lightning faded, and darkness crashed back down. But Amina's eyes had adjusted now, and in the dim light that the shrine still gave off, she could see the statues more clearly. They were warriors, each one carved in intricate detail, holding weapons, spears, machetes, bows with arrows knocked. Their faces were painted with the same white chalk patterns she'd seen on the figures in the middle of the night. And they were moving. Not quickly, not obviously, but she could see it happening. The slight shift of a wooden foot, the slow turn of a carved head. They were coming to life. Chidi still stood frozen, the mask in his hands. But now he was staring at it with an expression of pure horror, as if seeing it clearly for the first time. "I can't let go," he whispered. His voice was his own again, no longer that eerie echo. "Amina, I can't. My hands won't." Amina grabbed the mask, trying to pry it from his fingers. The wood was ice cold and felt long against her skin. Not smooth like carved wood should be, but almost alive, pulsing with a rhythm that matched a heartbeat. "Pull," she shouted. Together they yanked, and finally the mask came free from Chidi's hands. For a moment, Amina held it, and in that moment she understood everything. The mask wasn't just an object. It was a prison. Inside that carved wood lived something old and furious and desperately hungry. It had been trapped here for generations, bound by rituals and offerings and respect. But Chidi had broken those bindings when he touched it with his disrespectful, curious hands. Now it was free, and it wanted blood. Amina threw the mask back onto the altar with all her strength. It hit the woven branches with a crack, and immediately the wind died. The statues froze in their tracks. The chanting stopped mid-word. "Run," Chidi breathed. "Run." They ran. Through the forest, branches whipping their faces, roots trying to trip them. Behind them, Amina heard a sound like wood scraping on wood. The statues moving, following, hunting. They burst through the fence and onto campgrounds, not stopping until they reached the parade ground. There were people everywhere. Corpers who had finished evening parade, instructors walking between buildings, normal life continuing as if nothing had happened. Amina and Chidi collapsed on the grass, gasping for breath. When Amina looked back at the forest, everything seemed quiet and still. Just normal trees in the darkness. "Did that really happen?" she asked. Chidi looked at his hands. His palms were covered in scratches, and there was a burn mark where he'd held the mask, a perfect outline of wood grain seared into his flesh. "Yeah," he said hoarsely. "It happened. They should have told someone. Gone to the camp commandant, or at least to one of the instructors. But what would they say? That they'd snuck into the forest, trespassed on a sacred shrine, and touched something they'd been warned not to touch? They'd be expelled from camp at best. At worst, they'd be sent to psychiatric evaluation." So they said nothing. That was their second mistake. The first was going to the shrine at all. That night, Amina couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw that amber eye staring at her from the darkness. She heard the chanting, felt the ice-cold touch of the mask against her skin. Around 2 a.m., she gave up trying and climbed out of bed. Most of the other women in the dormitory were sleeping soundly, their breathing deep and even. How could they sleep? Didn't they feel it? The change in the air, the sense that something fundamental had shifted? Amina walked to the window and looked out at the parade ground. It was empty, bathed in the pale light of a waning moon. Beyond it, the forest was a wall of impenetrable darkness. As she watched, a light appeared at the forest's edge. Small at first, like a firefly. Then it grew, became a flickering orange glow. A fire. And in the light of that fire, Amina saw figures moving. The same figures she'd seen 3 nights ago, performing their ritual. But there were more of them now. At least 30, all dressed in white, all moving in that same swaying rhythm. The chanting reached her even through the closed window, low and rhythmic and angry. She was seeing it again. But this time she knew she wasn't dreaming. This was a warning. Or maybe a promise. The ritual continued for nearly an hour. Amina watched the entire time, unable to look away, her hands gripping the window bars so tightly her knuckles turned white. When it finally ended and the figures melted back into the forest, when the fire died down to nothing and the night returned to its normal darkness, Amina finally moved. Her body ached from standing still for so long. She went back to bed, but sleep never came. She lay awake watching the ceiling and waiting for dawn, knowing with absolute certainty that something terrible was coming. She just didn't know how soon. The reckoning Ngozi didn't come to morning parade. At first, no one noticed. With 200+ corpers standing in formation, one missing person could easily slip through the cracks. But when her bunkmate mentioned it to their platoon leader, a search began. They found her at 7:30 a.m., just as the sun was beginning to burn off the morning mist. She was lying in the space between the female dormitory and the kitchen block, in a narrow alley that was used mainly for storing broken furniture and trash bins. She was on her back, her eyes wide open and staring at the sky, her mouth frozen in a scream that had never made it past her lips. Amina heard the commotion from the dining hall where she'd been forcing down breakfast. She ran outside with dozens of others, pushing through the crowd that had already formed. She saw the body before anyone could stop her. Ngozi's skin was gray, drained of all color and warmth. But that wasn't what made Amina's stomach heave. It was the wounds. 5 parallel slashes ran from Ngozi's collarbone down to her navel, deep enough that white bone showed through in places. The slashes were too uniform to be random, too precise to be from an animal attack. They looked deliberate, ritualistic. And at the end of each slash, where the wounds terminated, there were small circular marks, like something had been driven into the flesh. Not nails or claws. Something else. Something with a specific pattern that Amina couldn't quite place, but that filled her with sick recognition. Everyone back. Camp Commandant Okafor's voice boomed across the yard. He pushed through the crowd, his face grave. Behind him came 2 of the camp's medical officers, carrying a stretcher and a white sheet. As they covered Ngozi's body, Amina caught sight of her feet, or where her feet should have been. The toes were gone, not cut off cleanly, but shredded, as if something with terrible strength had simply ripped them away. Amina turned and vomited into the nearest bush. When she straightened up, wiping her mouth with the back of her hand, she found Chidi beside her. His face was the color of old paper. "The marks," he whispered. His voice was so low only she could hear. On her chest, those circular marks. What about them? They matched the pattern on the mask. It couldn't be. They'd put the mask back. They'd returned it to the altar. Everything should have been fine. Maybe it's just a coincidence, she said, but the words sounded hollow even to her. Chidi grabbed her arm, his fingers digging in painfully. We have to go back. What? Are you insane? We have to check if the mask is still there. If it's not. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. The camp descended into chaos after Ngozi's body was discovered. All activities were cancelled. The corp members were ordered to stay in their dormitories unless absolutely necessary. Commandant Okafor called an emergency meeting with the senior staff, and rumor spread that he'd contacted the local police. But Amina knew the police wouldn't find anything. Or if they did, they wouldn't understand it. She and Chidi managed to slip away during the confusion of lunch, when people were lined up at the dining hall and the guards were distracted. They went through the same section of fence, moving quickly and quietly through the forest. The clearing looked different in daylight. The shrine stood silent and still, the offerings on the altar undisturbed. And hanging from its peg, exactly where it should be, was the mask. It's here, Amina breathed. Relief flooded through her. See, it's still here. Whatever happened to Ngozi, it wasn't. Look closer, Chidi interrupted. Amina stepped forward, her heart sinking as she saw what he meant. The mask was there, yes, but it had changed. The amber eye was darker now, almost red, and the empty socket. Something gleamed in its depths, something wet and glistening. Is that? Amina couldn't finish the question. Chidi moved closer to the altar, peering at the mask. Then he recoiled with a gasp. Blood. There's blood inside the eye socket. Fresh blood. They stared at each other, the full horror of what was happening settling over them like a shroud. The mask hadn't left the shrine, but somehow it had still killed Ngozi. Or something connected to it had. The barrier between the spirit world and the physical world had been breached when Chidi touched the mask, and now there was a channel. A way for the ancient warrior spirit to reach out beyond its prison and take its revenge. We need to fix this, Amina said. Her voice was shaking but determined. There has to be a way to close the breach, to make things right again. How? We don't know anything about this kind of thing. We don't know the rituals, the prayers, Then we find someone who does. Amina was already backing away from the shrine, pulling Chidi with her. Emeka said the locals still use the shrine. That means there's someone who knows how to deal with it. A priest, or whatever they're called. We find them, we explain what happened, and we beg them to help us. It was a desperate plan, but it was all they had. Finding a traditional priest in rural Nigeria proved harder than Amina expected. The nearest village was 3 kilometers from the camp, and when they finally reached it after an exhausting trek through the afternoon heat, the villagers they approached were suspicious and unhelpful. We don't speak of such things with outsiders, an old woman told them, shooing them away from her compound. You government people, you come here and build your buildings and cut down our trees, and you expect us to help you when your disrespect brings trouble? Go away. They tried several more compounds with similar results. Finally, as the sun was beginning to set and they were running out of time, they found someone willing to talk. His name was Baba Adeyemi, and he was ancient. So old that his skin looked like dried leather and his eyes were clouded with cataracts. He sat in the shade of a mango tree in front of a small mud house, carving something from a piece of wood with a small knife. When Amina explained what had happened, leaving out no details, no matter how embarrassing or incriminating, the old man listened without interruption. When she finished, he was quiet for so long she thought he'd fallen asleep. Then he spoke, his voice like dry leaves rustling. You touched Agbako. Agbako, the warrior spirit that guards our land. He was a great man once, the defender of our village against invaders from the north. When he died in battle, the gods were so impressed by his courage that they offered him a choice: to go to the afterlife and rest, or to remain as a guardian spirit, forever protecting the land he loved. Baba Adeyemi paused to spit beetle nut juice into the dust. He chose to stay. The priests bound his spirit into a mask carved from a lightning tree, and for 300 years he has kept us safe. But we returned the mask, Chidi protested. "We put it back on the altar." The old man's laugh was bitter. "You think it's that simple? The mask is not the spirit, young man. The mask is the door. When you touched it with your disrespectful hands, you opened that door. You invited Agbako to walk in the world again, and he accepted." He shook his head slowly. "Your friend's death is only the beginning. Agbako is angry. He will take one life for every day the door remains open. And it will not stop until he is satisfied that his territory has been cleansed of invaders." Amina felt like she'd been punched in the gut. One life per day. But there are 200 corpers in that camp. We have 2 more weeks of orientation. Then you have 2 weeks to make things right. Baba Adeyemi's milky eyes seemed to focus on her with sudden intensity. "Or 2 weeks to watch your friends die, one by one, while the door remains open. How do we close it?" Amina demanded. "Please, there must be a way." "There is a way." The old man set down his carving. Amina realized with a chill that it was a small mask, similar in design to the one at the shrine. But it requires a sacrifice. What kind of sacrifice? A life for a life. Blood for blood. The one who opened the door must offer himself to Agbako. His life in exchange for closing the breach and ending the curse. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Chidi's face had gone completely white. "You mean, I have to die? That is the old way. The traditional way." Baba Adeyemi returned to his carving, his gnarled fingers moving with surprising dexterity. "But I am old and have seen many things. The old ways are not always the only ways. There might be another path." "What path?" Amina's voice was desperate. "Please tell us." "The spirit wants respect. He wants recognition. He wants to know that the young people of today still remember the old ways, still honor the sacrifices of those who came before." The old man looked up at them again. "If you can show him this, if you can demonstrate true understanding and remorse, he might accept a different kind of sacrifice." "What kind?" "That I cannot tell you. It is between you and Agbako. You must return to the shrine at midnight tonight. You must speak to him, offer him something of true value. Not money or animals or material things. Something that costs you dearly. Only then might he listen." It wasn't much to go on, but it was more than they'd had before. As they were leaving, Baba Adeyemi called out to them one more time. "Children, one more thing. Agbako has already tasted blood. He has already begun his hunt. If you fail tonight, if he rejects your offering, he will not stop until every one of you is dead. The spirits do not forgive easily, and they never forget." They made it back to camp just after dark, sneaking back through the fence and separating to avoid suspicion. The camp was subdued, almost silent. Corpers huddled in small groups, speaking in whispers. Guards patrolled with flashlights, their faces tense. Amina went to find Jide. She found him in his dormitory, sitting on his bunk with his head in his hands. "Jide," she said softly. He looked up, and she was shocked by his appearance. He'd aged 10 years in a single day. His eyes were bloodshot, his face drawn. "They took her body away," he said dully. "Some government van came and took her. Her parents don't even know yet. How do you tell someone their daughter is dead? How do you explain that she was killed by something that shouldn't exist?" Amina sat down beside him. She wanted to tell him everything, about the mask, about Agbako, about the plan to try to fix things tonight. But the words stuck in her throat. What if they failed? What if she gave him false hope, only to have it crushed? "I'm sorry," she said instead. It was inadequate, but it was all she had. Jide looked at her, really looked at her, and she saw understanding dawn in his eyes. "You know something. About what happened. You and Chidi." It wasn't a question. Amina found herself nodding. "Tell me." So she did. She told him everything, from their first visit to the shrine to their conversation with Baba Adeyemi. Jide listened without interruption, his expression growing darker with every word. When she finished, he stood up. "I'm coming with you." What? No, Jide, it's too dangerous. Ngozi was my friend too. If there's even a chance this might work, I want to be there. Besides, he gave her a grim smile, you might need backup. Spirits or no spirits. Amina wanted to argue, but she could see the determination in his face. And truthfully, she was terrified of going back to that shrine at midnight. Having Jide there might make the difference between succeeding and ending up like Ngozi. Okay, she said. But we tell Chidi first. This has to be his decision. They found Chidi at dinner, pushing food around his plate without eating. When Amina told him that Jide knew everything and wanted to help, Chidi just nodded numbly. The more the merrier, he said with black humor. Maybe Agbako will take all three of us and spare everyone else. Don't talk like that, Amina snapped. We're going to fix this. We have to.